This is Midlife Music Teacher, and I'm Mrs. G. And my favorite band has a brand new album coming out on Friday. So I thought that I would share why this band is my favorite band, and join me for the week of the new album, Breach. Let's take it from the top. Each day this week, I've been listening to one of their albums. And so Saturday, I listened to the self-titled album. And I also listened to Regional at Best, a little bit of a deep cut. Yesterday was Sunday. I listened to the Vessel album. And so today, on Monday, I've been listening to Blurryface on my drive. Like every middle school and high schooler in the mid-'80s to the early 90s, I listened to pop music as much as I could, 24/7 if I could. My radio was always tuned in to the pop station of the day. When I went to college to study being a music teacher, my taste in music changed a bit. I started listening to more classical music. I was listening to Broadway musicals. And what I really listened to most of the time in my free time was contemporary Christian music. I listened to contemporary Christian music almost as much as I listened to pop music, but sprinkled in with some classical and some Broadway musicals. When my daughter was born, I thought that this was good music to keep listening to with a young child. Of course, because she was little, I listened to a lot of kids' music too, Disney, Wiggles, Laurie Berkner, that sort of thing. In my job, I was using that music too, obviously, but I would play it for her when she was small. So fast forward about 7 years, and in 2015, my daughter was 11, turning 12, and she was at that middle school age. And so those of you who have middle school children or had middle school children or teach middle school children, you know how tricky that age can be. And I wanted to make sure that I kept a special connection with my daughter. So I said, you know what? From now on, whenever we're in the car together, you pick the music. You put your music on. We'll listen to your music whenever we're in the car together. And so at the time, my daughter was listening to a lot of alternative music, alternative rock, alternative pop, indie rock, indie pop. Her favorite groups were like Panic at the Disco, Imagine Dragons, Bastille, Fall Out Boy. There was One Republic and The Script in there. And of course, in that group was 21 Pilots. As she played this music and we listened to it together, I really found myself really being drawn to this kind of music. And I don't know if it was partly because of the stage of life I was in at that time. I was also about to turn 40. And I think I was also kind of going through a midlife thing. She was going through middle school. And the music really spoke to me, and especially the songs of 21 Pilots. I think one of the first songs I heard was Holding On to You. And because I had just spent so many years listening to contemporary Christian music, I immediately kind of connected what he was singing about to him calling out to God. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's calling out to God. He's struggling with so many things, and he's still holding on to you, holding on to God. And that was really like, this isn't just your typical singing about partying and stuff like that. And I really appreciated kind of the deeper, mental health and personal struggles behind these songs. I think probably the next song I heard from 21 Pilots was Car Radio. And once again, he just lets it all out in that song. I was like, wow, this guy is struggling, and he just puts all his emotion into the music. Probably the next song I heard was Stressed Out, and I just thought it was so clever, this song. The way he does the lyrics about wishing he could find some chords in an order that is new, wishing he didn't have to rhyme every time he sang, and not rhyming. And then the lyrics about between student loans and treehouse homes, we all would take the ladder. And I'm like, it could be ladder like you wish the treehouse homes over the student loans, or a ladder. You need a ladder to get to the treehouse home. And I just thought that was so clever. I thought these lyrics were just so clever and thought out and well done. I think the next song I heard was House of Gold. And I remember saying to my daughter, I'm like, wait, this is the same group that sings, that Holding On to You song? And she's like, yeah. And so the diversity of their style and the music. And so I was hooked. I started going down a deep 21 Pilots dive. And by August of 2015, that's when I would consider I was officially a member of the Skeleton Clique. Not only did I go back and start listening to all their albums, their self-titled album, their Regional at Best, Vessel, and Blurryface, which were the albums that they had out at that time, but I also started listening to and watching interviews with them and concert footage from them. The reason that their name is 21 Pilots has to do with staying true to themselves and not just selling out because that's the easiest thing to do.
I was going to college, and in a theater class, we were studying a play called All My Sons by Arthur Miller. Quick rundown of that play. The main character was creating airplane parts for the current war, and he found out that those parts that he was making were faulty, and he had a decision to make. Do I send out the parts or do I recall the parts? He had an internal battle of, what was right and wrong and what was justified because he needed to feed his family and all these other things. And ultimately he sent the parts out and made the wrong decision, and 21 Pilots died because he did. The play ends pretty sad. He kind of just kills himself at the end. That's how the play finishes. But I guess how do we take that story and apply it to us as individuals and as a band is that we constantly have decisions coming our way. And a lot of times the right decision takes longer time and more work. And so our band name is a constant reminder of that.
And I realized as I kind of went down this deeper dive that this Blurryface album that they had released in 2015 had a sort of storyline. It was sort of a concept album, and that this storyline had lore behind it. Blurryface was a character, and in the videos, Blurryface is symbolized with red eyes and kind of a deep voice.
Yo, this song will never be on the radio. Even if my clique would have picked and the people would have vote, it's a few the proud and the emotional.
And Blurryface is the reason that the lead singer Tyler wears black paint on his neck and hands. Blurryface is the manifestation of his insecurities. Where do his insecurities lie? Well, they lie in his hands, which he uses to create and play music, and they lie in his neck, in his throat, because that's his voice that he uses to sing and speak his words. And so this whole real kind of internal struggle, the struggle with your faith, your struggle with mental health things, depression, anxiety, doubt, and fear. All right, fear is a heavy theme in all these albums. And so I just thought this whole concept was just so artistic and creative, and I just couldn't wait to hear more of what they had. For my 40th birthday, which was in October, I had a costume party, and I convinced my daughter to be Tyler Joseph, even though she wanted to be a kitty cat, and I dressed as Josh Dutton that year. During the Blurryface tour, 21 Pilots recorded one of their concerts, their Blurryface tour, and it was edited and, mastered for television broadcast. And so on New Year's Eve, 2015 into 2016, they broadcasted that concert. And so we, as a family, watched this concert on television on New Year's Eve, just seeing their whole show and seeing how it's just two guys. It's two guys doing this whole show. So after the success of the Blurryface album and the Blurryface tour, in May of 2016, 21 Pilots began a new tour called the Emotional Roadshow, which was kind of an extension of the Blurryface tour. And fortunately, my daughter and I and her friend and her friend's mother all got tickets to see the Emotional Roadshow when it came to our area. And so in January of 2017, we saw the Emotional Roadshow, and it was just something that I needed so badly at that time. I needed something to look forward to. And as somebody who has been to a lot of concerts in my lifetime, not so many recently, but it was just an amazing show. It's hard to describe a 21 Pilots show knowing that there's just two guys, but they have a whole team of people around them that they surround themselves with who just make these shows come to life. And as a member of the audience, you are not just the audience, you are part of the show. And it's just so uplifting. They always end their concerts with the song Trees, which is just kind of a celebration. It's not an ending, it's a celebration of what we've been through and how we can come together again. That 21 Pilots released their Heavydirtysoul video, which, unbeknownst to us at the time, was really kind of the first video in the lore story. Now, the Blurryface album has a lot of lore in it, but it was kind of vague and not really solidified. All we knew was that Blurryface was a character that Tyler Joseph created as a representation of his insecurities. But really, Blurryface was so much, much more. And we see him in the Heavydirtysoul video. Then, of course, in February of 2017, 21 Pilots get a Grammy Award. But I wanted to tune in because they were my favorites and there was a possibility they could win. And they did win. And their acceptance speech is just... it's just who they are. 21 Pilots was riding such a high off of the Blurryface album. The Blurryface album had reached #1. They had a worldwide tour, 2 actually, because they had the Blurryface tour and they had the Emotional Roadshow. They won a Grammy Award, and in June of 2017, the last show of the Emotional Roadshow, Tyler Joseph tweeted out a picture of him washing off the black paint off his hands. And then, as any 21 Pilots fan will tell you, the heartbreak and horror of the eye closing. They won an award for the Alternative Press Music Awards, and Josh accepted that award alone within a couple of weeks after the last Emotional Roadshow. And in that award acceptance, he said that Tyler wasn't there because he was severing ties with Dima. And so this sent all the fans into a frenzy. What does this mean? What is Dima? And people began to do some research on what this could possibly mean. However, both of them kind of went silent, kind of disappeared for almost a year. Until April of 2018, someone discovered a website that was briefly flashed. If you watched the little video that was on their website, there was one part in one section, it was right during car radio section, that someone noticed a website, like the flashing of a website. And so people started looking up this website. There was like a code error on this website, but that there was a code in the wording of it. And so now we have all these fans starting to crack these codes. While my daughter and I weren't good at solving all the puzzles, we enjoyed looking through this together. And what these codes kind of led to was a website that had all these coded messages, these letters from this character called Clancy. We started to get more detail about what Dima was, what the bishops were, who Blurryface actually was. Basically, all this was leading up to July 11th, 2018, and the release of the Jumpsuit music video, where Tyler Joseph began this video like this.
We've been here the whole time. You were asleep. Time to wake up.
With the release of the Jumpsuit video, and then that was followed up with the video for Nico and the Niners and the video for Levitate, the story of Dima and Trench and the Banditos and the Bishops started to become this real thing. And these videos were kind of like a movie. They told bits of a story that really began with Blurryface. Today, in my car, I will be listening to the album Trench. Trench is the follow-up to Blurryface, and Trench is also a kind of concept album. In my opinion, Trench is their best album. Lyrically and sonically, this one is just my favorite. So now Blurryface has a name, and Blurryface has a persona, and now we have Nicholas Bourbaki. And the Trench album came out in October of 2018, along with the release for the music video for My Blood, which wasn't really a typical 21 Pilots video. It's atypical for them to only be in a few seconds of the video, but it's a really good video, and it didn't really have to do with the story, although there is a callback to it later on. Trench was just one of those albums when I listened to it on the day it released, and there were times during that album where tears streamed down my face. It's just such a good album. In response to that album, they had a Banditos tour, and they toured for pretty much 2018 and 2019, and my daughter and I were fortunate enough to get to see the Bandito tour in October of 2019. And that tour was so good. Some of the songs and their performances of them it was just an experience to be able to see how they told this story through their concert, through their live performance. However, I believe that they were going to continue touring Trench, but we all know what happened in 2020, and all live music performances stopped. In 2020, we got some singles like Level of Concern. Not only did we get a song and a video for Level of Concern, but a few months later, they created a complete alternate reality game. And even though my daughter and I weren't the smart people who could solve the puzzles in the ARG, we really enjoyed following along as the fan base solved these puzzles, and it was just a really great distraction during the summer of 2020.
Need someone to talk to?
Yeah, you need to
Also, during the Level of Concern era, 21 Pilots got a Guinness Book of World Record for the longest video, which ended in December with Josh unplugging the power. And then later on in that year, we got Christmas Saves the Year. And when Christmas Saves the Year was released, the single cover, on the photograph for the single cover was a little present, and on the present it said SAI, S-A-I, is propaganda. Later on, we would find out that SAI stood for Scaled and Icy, which was their next album. Today is Wednesday, and today's listening is the Scaled and Icy album. This album was created during a time of isolation. It was created during 2020-2021. That album came out in May of 2021, when we didn't know if or when live shows would return. So 21 Pilots made a live stream concert to go along with the release of the Scaled and Icy album. This live stream concert employed a bunch of people, gig workers, that were out of work since early 2020. Set designers, lighting, costume designers, choreographers, dancers, background singers, extra musicians, all kinds of people that were out of work. And so fans across the world could pay $20 to watch this live stream concert, which coincided with the release of this album. The album Scaled and Icy is propaganda to go along with their lore story, and Scaled and Icy was an album that was completely different than their typical music, and used this album to continue the story, used the live stream concert to continue the story. Obviously, live music did return, and 21 Pilots toured this album first as a takeover tour, where they would go to cities and play a tiny venue, and then a medium-sized venue, and then a large venue. So they would take over different cities and play in these different venues. And I feel like they did that in order to kind of help some of these venues, whether small, medium, or large, kind of recoup from this whole shutdown that we were coming out of.
Hands up, sway, sway, sway.
During this year, we also got Roadblocks concerts, and so Roadblocks. We also got the MTV Unplugged performance as well during the Scaled and Icy era. Then they continued touring the Scaled and Icy album with the Scaled and Icy tour. And when that was over and they released the last video to go along with that album, which was the video to The Outside. And that video ends kind of with a sort of cliffhanger, which led us to have to wait for the next part of the story, which was supposed to be the grand finale. The album Clancy was supposed to be the ending of the story of the lore. On February 29th, 2024, 21 Pilots released Overcompensate, which was the first single and video off of the album Clancy. And this video was a continuation of the lore and the story. That was followed by the announcement that on this album, every single song on the album would have a video. They released Next Semester, they released Backslide, they released The Craving, and so each of those had a video. Today is Thursday, and today's listening is the Clancy album. The Clancy album came out at the end of May last year, and when this album came out, they made a video for every single song. And so at midnight on the day of the release, they had a live stream where they premiered every single video that hadn't already been released. And I really contemplated, should I stay up? Do I watch the live stream? And I decided as a fan, just had to.
Guys, it's late. We have just one more song left on the record. One more song here is Paladin Straight. Like I said earlier in the stream, we have a music video for it ready to go. We're not going to show it tonight. We're going to show it pretty soon. So all we have is a placeholder for it. Yeah, once again, thanks to everyone here that helped put this on. Thank you. Thank you guys for staying up late or getting up early or whatever you did. Thanks for continuing to support us. There's not a big machine. I don't know. I've always wanted to hear that from my favorite artists. That there's not some, machine that's behind it all that's kind of like concocting every song and lyric and music video and it's just us and the people that I mentioned and thanked and you guys. I can't believe that we're able to do this. And we're excited for the future. Paladin ends, then it's over. Guys, when you hear the end of Paladin, you tell me. You tell me. Does it sound like the end? Go.
So as we patiently waited for the Paladin Straight video, 21 Pilots released something called the Clancy album Digital Remains. And so for like $8, you could purchase this download that had all these pictures and photos, maps, drawings, all kinds of things that had to do with the story. And little did we know, or the fans kind of misunderstood what the point of the Digital Remains was that there was a puzzle to be solved using these photos and drawings and everything else. So when a clue was given out on social media, then people started to put the puzzle together. They found a code. This code revealed a DEMA-censored version of the Paladin Straight video. And then came the release of the video itself. And this video is like a movie. And this video ended on a cliffhanger.
So proud. So emotional. Hello, Clancy.
The Clancy World Tour began in August of 2024, and the band made a statement that this tour was going to be like a looking back at where the story has come so far. At the end of the world tour, within a few weeks after that, on June 12th, 2025, the song The Contract was released off of the new album Breach. The final ending of the story, for real, with a brand new album. They released the music video and song The Contract, which picks up where Paladin Straight left off. And then the song ends again where Paladin Straight left off. We got the drum show single. And while that video doesn't have anything to do with the lore, it is the first time that Josh Dunn is singing on a studio record. They completed this 10-year lore story with the album Breach, which will come out at midnight tomorrow, Friday, midnight on Friday. The video they release tomorrow to go with the song City Walls will tell the final tale in the lore. So I'm excited for the album. I'm excited for the video. I'm a little sad this chapter is coming to a close. They have said that they are not gonna just break up after this album. They've said, on the contrary, after this album and the short tour that they're going to be doing over the next 2 months, they have a period of unknown, which means it's the first time in probably like 13, 14 years where they don't have any like, we have to do this, and this is what has to come next, and then this comes next. They're putting an ending on this chapter, and I personally can't wait to see what creativity comes out of their period of unknown. Today is Friday, and today I listened to Breach for the first time as it was released at midnight. I started this morning by watching the video for City Walls, and wow, that video cost $1 million to make. Whole lore kind of wraps up, I guess you could say, with the end of this video. It doesn't end on a cliffhanger like the Paladin Straight video did. It's pretty much an ending, and it's kind of bittersweet. Well, let me just say what a story it was, what a journey it was. And yeah, so Breach was released today. I really felt some of the songs. I do every time they have a new album come out, and I listen for the first time and I just kind of take it in. And there are some lyrics, things that they do sonically that just kind of bring out the emotions in me. So this album definitely hits all the right spots with all of that, and it's probably going to be my on repeat album for the next few months. Great album, a finale to the story, and now there'll be tons of content to watch on YouTube regarding Breach and Breach reactions, and they start their tour in less than a week for this album, which is just a short tour, but so there'll be footage of that. So I'm excited. There is obviously still more to come. The Breach album has been out now for about 2.5 weeks, and I have been listening to it pretty much nonstop since it released on September 12th. I can tell you that this album is now tied for my favorite. This album is my favorite, tied with Trench. I just can't take Trench off of the #1 spot. But this one is tied with it. It's not second to it. It is tied. I just love this album. It's got no skippable songs on it, and it's just another kind of diverse album. One thing about this album, though, is there is no ukulele on this album, which is interesting. But Tyler Joseph kind of went back to a more kind of piano and synths route on this album, and it just works. I love this album. So why do I love 21 Pilots? Well, I love 21 Pilots because first and foremost, I love the music. Sonically, lyrically, these songs have spoken to me over the past 10 years. In those times in my life where I've just related so much to some of this music. I also really respect them as artists and musicians. When they record an album and when they do their live performances, they give their all. This music is full of passion and emotion, and I have such respect for that kind of energy and devotion to your art form, to your craft. And also, I just love the whole story that has gone on. The past 10 years, I've been a fan of them. And at first I didn't know the story, but the way they ended the story about 2.5 weeks ago just is also part of why I like them. The story did not end with a pretty little bow on top. And it's not a super happy ending. And a lot of people had to come to terms with that. But as a person who loves stories, I feel like when stories don't end with a pretty little bow, it doesn't have a super happy ending. I feel like those kinds of stories show the utmost respect to the audience. Those creators, those storytellers who believe in their audience enough to have the intelligence to think about, what does the end of this story mean? Why is this the end of the story? What could possibly come next in the story? And so I just really appreciate the storytelling part of it as well. Why did I make this video? So the reason I made this video first and foremost was because Breach was coming out. And I knew I wanted to kind of make a video about the leading up to this album. I've also been a fan for 10 years, and this was kind of a way to go back and reflect on past 10 years of the story and me being a fan. And my last video did so poorly that I really just wanted to have a video that I would have fun making. And I've had a lot of fun reflecting on like the first times I've heard these songs, the first times I heard these albums, getting to see them win a Grammy Award, getting to see them do live performances. And so I had a lot of fun making this video. And so I felt like if this video bombs and no one watches it, at least I'll have had that chance to reflect on, enjoying this band with my daughter and just the past 10 years. My birthday is coming up. And so the past 10 years of, being in the fandom, as well as, I have a birthday coming up, kind of a big one. I've kind of spent the last decade with this music as my favorite. And so I tell people all the time, I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I don't drink soda. And so I tend to tell people that 21 Pilots is my medicine. Whether anyone watches this video or not, I had fun making it. So if you did watch this video and you don't really know much about 21 Pilots, I included a lot of links in the description below. So please go check them out. If you checked out this video because you are a fan of 21 Pilots, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate that so, so much. And music ed content is coming back very soon, so stay tuned. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.